Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Riverdale. So in this episode, we're kind of picking up where the week before last episode ended off with certain developments. Obviously, the whole Veronica and Archie situation. Archie's like, yo, what's up with us? Which Veronica's kind of like, we need to put that on hold. She's like stressing about everything else in her life. It's like, is my dad behind the whole Jason Blossom murder and stuff like that? And you have Alice coming up with this whole plan. It's like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to investigate FP. I literally keep stumbling. Every time I get ready to say his name, for some reason, I want to say JP rather than FP. But nevertheless, Jughead's dad is like, we need to investigate him because Alice is like, yeah, the fact of the matter is we don't know. Like, obviously Betty's like, no, Jughead says he asked his dad said, no, I had nothing to do with Jason's murder. And he says like, he believes him. And so I believe him too. I have faith. I believe in Jughead. Like he believes in his dad that strongly. Then I believe in him too. So Betty didn't want to be mixed up in all this situation. Veronica didn't feel the same way because for Veronica, it's like, she needs to know the truth. Her dad might be connected to all this because she really needs to know whether or not her dad is a good guy or not. Because for her dad is actually going to be getting out of prison soon because the lawyer got it. So it's like, oh, time served. So in the next couple months, he might be getting out. And unless, what she wants to know is when the time comes, should she welcome her dad back with open arms or should she give him the cold shoulder? Because she already sees what kind of a bad person he is because of everything that's happened. Obviously, like all the money he's stolen from people and stuff like that. For example, Ethel and her family. But then on top of that, you have this whole situation where it's like, now you have a step further of being like, oh yeah, the fact of the matter is he might have had someone murdered. So, I mean, he's willing to like destroy people's property. Ended up, let's not forget Moose got the crap beat out of him by people that were hired by her dad. So, but obviously Hermione isn't willing to really listen to that. I think it's more so than anything, she's trying to give him the benefit of the doubt because she doesn't really want it to be true that maybe he had something to do with all of this because it's like, I don't know. I just think at the end of the day, she is trying to give him the benefit of the doubt that like, hey, that she didn't have bad taste in men, that the men that she once loved and married is like, at least a decent human being. So, Veronica ends up getting Archie mixed up in this because for her, she brings up the fact is, Archie, you need to do this anyway. Because like for me, obviously, I'm trying to find the truth. But at least in your case, you want to be doing this for Jughead. Which he's like, we shouldn't be doing this behind Jughead's back. We should talk to Jughead. But it's like in her mind, it's like it's kind of the same thing with Alice. It's like they will automatically think Jughead's automatically going to protect his dad. It's like no, I mean Jughead. Out of anyone, Jughead's the biggest critic when it comes to his dad. So, but at the same time, you're like, maybe he has blinders on and he's only willing to see what he wants to see. Yes, he's always seen his dad's flaws, but as we saw in this episode, his dad shaved, his dad is cleaning up and interested in what Jughead's doing with the whole, like, story he's writing and stuff like that. And then on top of that, he's never missed work and stuff. So obviously Jughead's seeing him in a very different light to the point he's even saying like, oh, I should move back in with him. But that was what Veronica was getting at. She's like, the very least, like, you should make sure that FP, see, I did it again, FP is actually, on the up and up, because the last thing you want is Jughead mixed up in whatever he might be connected to. So they end up breaking into his place and looking around and found absolutely nothing, which you see a frantic Veronica, and you have Archie asking, like, did you actually want to find something? Which she's like, no, I don't know. She wanted the truth. It doesn't matter what the truth is, but she needs to know. She can't walk away with this not knowing, because that's going to hurt her most. But then for Archie's like, don't worry, no matter what the situation may be, the fact of the matter is you won't have to face it alone. I'll be there by your side. So kind of glad to see things kind of kicking off between them. Also, like side note, they killed it that they, is that prom or was it just a dance? I think it was prom, but they killed it up there when they were performing and everything. But obviously you had Betty being super suspicious of them, especially when she saw them talking to Alice, which I'll go ahead and talk about it. Obviously, like, Betty caught on pretty quickly about what Alice was doing because Alice had invited Jughead as well as FP over. But the fact of the matter is, like, Betty's like, I know what you're doing. You're trying to corner him. And she's like, I'm not trying to do that. The fact is, Jughead wants our families to get to know each other because it's like, oh, we're dating and everything, and so our families should get to know each other too, because it's like, probably for Jughead, I mean, not probably, definitely for Jughead, he hasn't had a stable family life in a while, but like, things are good. He's got his girlfriend, he's got his dad, and it's like, oh, my dad is about to meet my girlfriend's family. It's like, oh, we can sit down. It's like, this is a good thing. So it's some stability returning to his life, so. But as expected, Alice corners him and starts asking a whole bunch of questions. Got really interesting when a certain special guest, Hal, shows up. Betty had invited him without telling Alice, and it's like, oh yeah, the entire family's together and stuff like that. And it basically turns into a whole conversation because obviously, like, Alice kept pushing him, like, oh, did you hear about the drive-in? Huh? What were your thoughts about that? Oh, the lodge is blowing it up. Oh, really? It's like, oh, how you feel about it? No. Rather, I shouldn't be saying how did you feel about it. I should rather be asking, were you surprised? I'm looking at the fact is that he was connected to it being bought and everything. And then during the conversation, FP's like, you know what? Actually, I used to actually know your dad and mom back in the day. Like, oh yeah, it was actually at my prom. Me and Fred were about to go on and perform and everything. And then I heard this big argument between them. And you have Alice kind of looking at him, and he's like, I don't know what it was about. And she's like, she's like, really? She's like, hey, you stop. And he's like, I will stop if you stop. He's like, you don't think I realize what you're doing? Trying to do this right here, especially in front of my son? It's like, that's not going to fly. I can only assume that this had to do something with that abortion that she had in the past. She went and, like, had that whole conversation with Hal a couple episodes back. I think that's what they were arguing about. I'm sure FP knows exactly what it is, but he, like, even though he's trying to get at them, I'm sure he's not trying to, like, do that in front of Betty, especially because Betty's so important to Jughead too. So it's like, she's been good to my boy and she makes my boy happy. So at the very least, I shouldn't really be doing that in front of her. So it could be something else, but I feel like that's the big thing, especially at such a young age. It seems like that'd be the kind of thing that they'd be arguing so heavily about. But I mean, we'll just kind of have to wait and see on that front. But as I was bringing up earlier, obviously, like, Betty figured it out. It's like, okay, she confronts Veronica and Archie, and eventually they end up telling Jughead the truth, which Jughead did not take that lightly. It's like, for one, he has, like, his best friend to do this, like a brother to him. It's like, you went behind my back and did this to me. You turned your back on me, like, trying to look into my dad. And for what, he's like, I'm trying to protect you. Like, I was trying to do this for your sake. It's like, dude, like, you know how much this meant to me. And then also finding out, like Betty went behind his back, which Betty, she had an idea, but she didn't know what they were up to, what her mom was up to and everything. And it's, for Jughead, it's like, my dad was literally asking me to leave this town because it's like, it's like our family gets chewed up and spit out by this town. And it's like, if you stay here, you're just going to get caught up in that. You can't escape who you are, like who I am and everything. So, really quickly, since we were talking about FP, I'm surprised that conversation didn't come up. I kind of have points. It makes you wonder, I don't know. I was about to say, makes you wonder, was there ever anything between FP and Alice in the past? But it's like, never. I mean, like, the thing is, like, last episode made me think, like, oh yeah, like, she was a serpent, a West Side Serpent at some point too, but, like, I'm surprised it didn't come up in conversation. I'm waiting for that to kind of circle back around, but nevertheless, even considering not ever going with his dad, because his dad's like, oh, I'm back, I'm good and everything right now. So it's like, hey, I want to get our family back together. That means moving out, be with your mom and Jelly Bean. And it's like, it's like being betrayed by the people you trust most. And it's a situation, especially because it's something that hits so close to home. I mean, like I said, like, at the end of the day, like, everyone has their, like, it's a selfish thing, but at the same time, everyone has their, like, had good intentions, because it's like, at the end of the day, Veronica's just trying to get the truth. Same thing as Archie, especially because Archie's looking out for Jughead. And it's like, more so than anything, her concern was basically finding out what kind of, I mean, really it comes down to, like, and it's all for the sake of revealing the truth. And that's like, finding out Jughead's family situation. Find out this whole, God, I don't know where, I just kind of had a brain fart. I'm sorry. Basically fixing her whole family situation. Because even have a conversation with Hermione later on, like, if we find out that dad is guilty of that she's like, her mom is like, we'll cut all ties with him, give him the cold shoulder, and just kind of like, hey, it'll just kind of have to just be us. But, like, she's like, dad won't let that happen. Like, if it turns out that he is guilty, which I kind of don't think like, this thing is, no one's 100% innocent in this whole situation. Everyone has their little roles connected to the great, but the overall, like, murder of Jason Blossom, which, like, there was an interesting thing that Jughead had brought up earlier in the episode when he was talking to his dad about the whole thing. It's like, yeah, I think ultimately it's not what's important. What really matters isn't who killed Jason. What matters is whether or not Riverdale is a good place or an evil place, And it's like, because the thing of the matter is, like, all of this was already there beneath the surface in Riverdale. It just took Jason's murder to kind of bring a lot of skeletons to the surface. So now it seems like, I mean, especially with the new development of FP getting arrested, which Veronica and Archie ends up bringing up to Betty. It's like, yeah, we know you're pissed at us, but the fact of the matter is, they said they found the gun in his place. It's like, that's impossible. We literally searched the entire place and they found it in a closet. It's like, we searched there. There was nothing in there before. Someone is framing FP. Because even like Betty ended up asking, like, did you call the sheriff to go check out FP's place? And she's like, no, I didn't. Like, she wouldn't need to, because the fact of the matter is Archie and Veronica already searched the place and said they found nothing. So why would she do that? So, I mean, then again, it's like, maybe the kids didn't search as thoroughly, like maybe the cops. So that could be, devil's advocate. I mean, yeah, devil's advocate in that situation. But we do see Betty obviously at odds with her mom too, because it's like, this all happened because of you. You couldn't just let things go. You couldn't just listen to me. I said to let this go. Do not drag Jughead and his dad into this whole situation. I asked you, I pleaded with you, and you did it anyway. So it's like, do not push me, Mom, because I am likely to push back. I'm like, wow. Like I say, it's so interesting because like I feel like Betty never really stood up to her mom that often throughout the series, but it's like, I mean, prior to the series, but I feel like now, since everything that's happening, it's changing her as well as everyone else. But I mean, it's so sad because now this group is kind of fractured, because obviously Betty's at odds with Archie and Veronica, and now you have Jughead being off on his own, because I'm sure he's going to try and prove his dad's innocence. But the fact of the matter is that everyone, Jughead's at odds with everyone else too. So, also in this episode, and I made sure to look, because I had to make sure. I was like, I guess last episode I was like, is that Molly Ringwald? Turns out I was 100% right. I was like, I thought so. But she plays Archie's mom, Mary. And so Mary and Fred are kind of on good terms. She even goes out of her way to invite Hermione to the prom dance and everything, which is like super weird and awkward. Even Fred's like, wait, what? You invited her? She's like, yeah. And they went to listen to Archie and Veronica sing and do their thing. But the fact of the matter is, you had Al, like, that's what's so, like, it's like Alice, like, you want to give her the benefit of doubt, but then she does stuff just like, why you gotta be like that? She's like, oh, really? You came here with Fred? And I'm like, oh, I can't believe you would do that. Oh, your husband, Fred's been doing some scandalous stuff, like him and Hermione. I was like, oh, you didn't know about that? Which Mary was like, Fred's a grown man. He can do whatever he wants. It was like, she wasn't getting all bent out of shape. She's like, yeah, I just came here to have a good time and everything. So I was like, kind of didn't work. It's like she purposely tries to get underneath people's skin. I don't know. I'm sure there are things in her past that made her the way she is now. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just like the way Mary puts it too, she's like, the fact of the matter is you've always been like that, because there was even a conversation she had with Hermione where Hermione was kind of like apologizing, because she was like, yeah, back in the day, she was like, I was a very mean girl. It seems like the apple didn't fall far from the tree. Like, Veronica used to apparently be like that too. And it seems like obviously coming back, obviously Hermione getting older changed her, but coming to Riverdale and probably her whole dad situation kind of put things in perspective for her. So obviously Veronica's not the same person she was too. So that was kind of interesting. Like, she was like, oh, but that makes me wonder, was Mary kind of one of her quote unquote victims, one of those people that, how Veronica's talked about the fact is that she targeted people just to target him. Like, was the same thing happening between Hermione and Mary or not? It does seem that Mary did come here with an ulterior motive. Obviously, she wanted to spend some time with Archie. At first, it almost seemed like it might be like, because even Archie's like, it's a little weird seeing you two here. Like, it's, kind of acting all civil and everything. Which even like Jughead's like, oh, so possibly Fred and Mary, which Archie's like, well, younger me would have loved that. But it's like, as he is now, it's like, I think part of him was like hesitant, because it's like, you guys are getting divorced for a reason. It's like, you want to be like, I don't want you to be together just for the sake of being together, because it's like, who's to say you being together won't just cause more problems later on. But it's very interesting, because like, like I said, it might not have been like I was saying, like, she came here for a particular reason, and it seems like to tell Archie, like, hey, maybe you should get out of Riverdale, maybe you should come live with me in Chicago. The fact of the matter is, things are getting dangerous around here, and the last thing I want is you caught up in all of this. Whether, like, the thing is, I don't know if that's what she originally came here for, or was it obviously the events of, like, FP getting arrested, especially because FP's, like, Jughead's dad, and that's someone that's, like, that's 1 degree separation between him and Archie. So it's kind of like that danger's a little too close to home. So I don't know. Maybe it's only certain events that kind of made her go like, okay, now's the time to ask you about this. Or maybe she always had the plans. But we do hear Fred kind of hearing this old conversation from over up the stairs and everything. So that's going to definitely be an interesting development going forward, because he's like, so that's, probably turn into an argument. So that's why you came back here. I thought, we're trying to keep things civil and everything. It's like, no, you're trying to take my son away from me. It's like, but I'm doing it for his sake. I mean, you can kind of see the writing on the wall already. But another very interesting element about this episode was the Blossom side of things, where we find out that Cliff is actually, he's got the white gray hair thing going on. I mean, it's gray, but he's actually wears wigs to keep it, got to keep up the image of the whole, like, being redheads, because it's like, that's kind of what the Blossoms are known for, their bright red hair. So that's something that Polly's stumbled upon. She's obviously still investigating the family and stuff like that, but she's told, like, I thought something was up when, like, her Mama Blossom kept feeding her those milkshakes. It's like, okay, you gave her one early in the episode, now you're giving her another. It's like, what the hell is up with this milkshake? Something's got to be funny with it. Later on, we ended up finding out she ended up getting drugged. But basically, while, Cheryl and her are just like, look, it's like, oh, let's steal some jewelry from your mom and everything, they ended up coming across the ring that Jason was going to give to Polly, and it turns into a whole thing. It's like, how did it get here? Like, Jason wouldn't have given that back to them for just, any reason, which Cheryl was telling her to back down. Just because those babies are inside of you doesn't mean you get a safe pass of, like, doing whatever you want to. Kind of like, do not cross us, you will kind of regret it. And then you see her kind of looking at the ring, because it starts making her think about it. Which then, like, Cheryl comes in, she's like, okay, what the hell did you do? It's like, oh, she was acting a little erratic. We just, calmed her down. It's like, you just drugged a kid. And it's not just any kid. It's a kid that's not even your own. Don't you think that's a little messed up? Oh, you don't, just because you're evil? It's like, holy crap. Like, what are you, like, that? I mean, it's like, you can't help but paint yourself as villains, dude. Because the whole story is, I mean, Mama Blossom ended up telling it to Polly, and then obviously kind of reiterates it to Cheryl. That's like, yeah, the story is that basically Jason had wanted nothing to do with the family anymore, didn't even want to have anything in the business or whatever, and so he took the ring and threw it back at it. And then, because it's like, obviously that's a family thing, and he's like, he doesn't want any attachment to the Blossoms. Like, if he's going to give Polly a wedding ring, he'd rather probably do it with his own hard work money. He'd not want anything to do with the Blossoms, kind of leaving it all behind, which his dad is quickly badmouths him. Like, it's like, oh yeah, the fact of the matter is, I put so much time and effort into Jason to, run the business and everything. It's like, nice way to talk about your dead son like that. Like, oh, like, almost like, I can't believe I wasted all that time in him, and he was never cut out for this. But the fact is, you were, Cheryl. I should have been grooming you to kind of take over the company and everything. And obviously, Cheryl lies about the whole situation about the ring and everything. It's like, yeah, I threw it in the drain just in case someone starts asking questions, which immediately I'm like, you didn't, which she didn't. Because I knew she wouldn't, because for one, it's like, it's such an important thing. It's like, Jason would never willingly give that up because of what it represents and everything. Even if the story is true, the fact of the matter is, that's still something like, it's not like they were open about it. It's like something that if her and Polly had never found it, they never would have said anything about it. So obviously she knows that her family knows a lot more than you're letting on about things. I mean, that's been pretty obvious from the beginning. So I think it's to the point, Cheryl's getting to the point, like, I feel like she's always been a little distrustful of her family. But like, as we've seen in the past couple episodes, she's been so almost acting like a Blossom. Like, like I said, earlier in the season, it seemed like she had moments where she kind of distanced herself. It's kind of like the Jason situation. I'm sure Jason was always 100% like a Blossom until he met Polly and had a change of heart. So it's like, I don't know. It seems like Cheryl's still caught in the middle of, like, trying to have a change of heart or not. I mean, we'll just kind of have to wait and see about the whole situation. So I'm also curious about Joaquin, too, because, like, the moment he saw Kevin's dad kind of pop up at dance and Kevin went to go see him, like, Joaquin ended up backing away. So I'm sure he's probably, it's like, oh, they're closing in on FP. Third time I've done that. Sorry. So I'm thinking he's probably going to use this as an opportunity to move Jason's jacket wherever it is that he's got it hidden. So, and that's still something that's being kept too. It's like, the fact of the matter is, Joaquin is kind of like the Serpent's inside source. I mean, in particular, FP's inside source. That's kind of already been suggested, but, Betty's not willing to kind of really go any deeper, especially after these new developments, and she's not going to do anything her mom says from now on because of that. So overall, a very, very good episode, and I'm very interested to see where these new developments take us next time. I mean, the biggest question we're walking away from in this episode is, like, who framed FP? Because it's like, obviously he didn't kill Jason from the very beginning. I knew he didn't. Obviously he's like neck deep in all of this. Like, once again, like I brought up earlier, everyone kind of is, but it's like indirect things. It's like like I brought up, which I also said too, is like all this stuff has been bubbling beneath the surface of Riverdale. It just took one person killing Jason to make it all explode, to like all the skeletons to rise to the surface. So the season is closing down because if you're not aware, because I went ahead and looked this up ahead of time, the season is only 13 episodes long. This was episode 11, so only 2 more until, you know, I mean 1 more and then the season finale. Just putting it like that. So I'm sorry. Nevertheless, but that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.